All right, New York City. When the sun goes down and those lights come up, there are some names that just have this like pull. Studio 54, the standard Tao Group.
Mhm.
They're not just venues; it's more like they're destinations.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely. They've absolutely become synonymous with a certain kind of energy and aspiration. You can't just sort of replicate that. It's built over time.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today in this deep dive.
Mm.
How do you bottle lightning in a bottle? How did these nightlife and hospitality empires get built? We're going to look at the vision, the hustle, the pure creativity that created those scenes that everyone wanted to be a part of. Music, food, and that feeling like you're somewhere special. Those unforgettable vibes.
Right, and it's easy to just see the glamour, the packed clubs, the lines down the street, but there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. It's about understanding how these places tapped into some pretty fundamental desires and how they went from just a good time to iconic brands shaping New York's social scene. And that's what makes it so fascinating to study, I think.
So let's kind of set the stage here. I mean, we both know New York City nightlife is in a category of its own right.
For sure. I mean, it's more than just going out. It's always been like this reflection of the city's culture, its evolution even. I mean, think about it. You have the whole speakeasy era during Prohibition, right? Then that explosion of disco in Studio 54. And now you've got these like super sleek rooftop lounges. Each phase tells you something about what New York was feeling, what it wanted to be at that moment.
It's about identity status, this desire to express yourself and escape a little bit. And the really successful places, those are the ones that nail that whole experience thing, right? They give you a story to tell, a reason to come back.
Totally. The venues that really stick around those become like woven into the fabric of the city, It's not just a location anymore. It's part of people's memories and their stories. And the thing is, behind those places are these really driven, often kind of eccentric personalities who manage to blend art and business and that sense of community. They're the ones who make it happen.
Which brings us to well, I guess you could say the granddaddy of them all, Studio 54. I mean, even if you weren't there in the 70s, that name has power.
Studio 54, yeah. It was more than just a club. It was this phenomenon, And the guys behind it, Steve Rubell and Ian Schrager, they basically redefined what nightlife could be. It was part theater, part fashion show, and definitely the place to be seen. That was like your status symbol right there.
And a big part of that was that they really understood how to play the exclusivity game. Like that whole velvet rope scene, it wasn't just about crowd control. It was part of the whole mystique.
Oh, yeah. Getting in was half the battle, right? Once you were in, it was like sensory overload on purpose. The lighting was cutting edge. The sound system was incredible. And then you had these performances that you just wouldn't see anywhere else. It was designed to make you feel like you were somewhere truly special, like you'd stepped into another world.
So they weren't just running a club. They were building a brand, a feeling. Like you belonged to something exclusive and exciting. It wasn't just about the music. It was about the whole scene.
Exactly. And it's interesting how Schrager later took that same idea of creating a scene and applied it to hotels. Like, think about the Mondrian or the Public Hotel. The lobbies themselves become these destinations, places where people want to hang out and see and be seen. It's kind of like Studio 54, but in a different context,
Yeah, and that's what's so smart. So let's shift gears a little to a more modern example, Tao Group. I mean, they are everywhere these days. Tao Downtown, Marquee, Levio, Beauty, and Essex. They've got this whole ecosystem going on.
What Tao Group did so well was understand that people want different experiences throughout a night or a weekend. So they built this network of places, each with its own vibe, but all under that same umbrella of, quality and that kind of sense. Tao, cool. You could start with dinner at Beauty and Essex and then end up at LVO. It's all connected.
And the founders, right, Noah Tepperberg, Jason Strauss,
Yeah.
I mean, they come from that whole 90s party promoter world. So they knew how to create buzz, how to get people talking and wanting to be part of something.
Right. From the beginning, they weren't just thinking about one-off events. They were thinking about building lasting brands. And they were really smart about combining high-end dining with nightlife. It's like that dinner party that turns into a club. You're not just paying for a meal, you're buying into an experience a whole night out.
And they nailed a few things really well. Strong partnerships, consistency across their venues. They know how to tap into celebrity culture, and their branding is super strong. You know it's Tao the minute you walk in.
And they haven't just stayed in New York, right? They're in Vegas, Singapore. And what's impressive is that no matter where you go, a Tao venue has that same level of spectacle and that attention to detail and service. They're not letting things slip as they grow, which is tough to do.
Yeah, you really see how hospitality itself has changed, especially in New York. It's not just clubs and restaurants anymore. Hotels have become these destinations in their own right. Like they're part of the nightlife scene too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, look at the Ace Hotel. They took the idea of a hotel lobby and turned it into this, like, social hub. You didn't even have to be staying there to hang out there. It became this gathering spot for creative types, you know? Artists, freelancers, musicians, they made it feel welcoming and kind of cool, and that drew people in.
And then you have the standard. Andre Belazes really knew how to blur the lines between hotel and nightlife. Like the Boom Boom Room.
Yeah.
With those views. It practically became a landmark itself.
Yeah. They understood that a hotel could be more than just a place to sleep. It could be this platform to experience the city, to be seen, to have those Instagrammable moments, you know? And they were very deliberate about it. The design, the layout, even the way the staff interacted with guests, it all contributed to that feeling that you were somewhere special. And that's where that user-generated content comes in. People sharing their pictures, their experiences. It all just adds to the brand's mystique and keeps it in the conversation.
So for everyone listening out there, a lot of you are creative entrepreneurs yourselves, right? You're building businesses, designing spaces, launching brands. What are some of the takeaways we can learn from these New York hospitality giants?
Well, there's a lot to unpack here, but I think one of the biggest lessons is that atmosphere is everything. It's not just about the physical space. It's about the whole vibe, the feeling you create, the lighting, the music, even the smells. All of that plays a role. You're not just selling a product or service. You're selling an experience, a feeling.
It's like you're curating a mood.
Right.
And that's what people remember.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then the second thing is community. You know, the brands that last, they don't just chase customers. They build communities. They figure out who their tribe is and they cater to them. They understand their lifestyle, their values, and they make them feel like they belong. It's not about being everything to everyone. It's about finding your niche and really owning it.
Like Studio 54. It wasn't just about being rich and famous. It was about a certain kind of energy, a certain mix of people that created that vibe.
Right. And then the third lesson is you got to adapt or die right. Look at Tao Group. They're constantly evolving, expanding into new markets, trying new things. And Schrager, he went from disco to this super minimalist hotel aesthetic. You can't just sit still. You have to be willing to change and adapt to the times.
And it all starts with a vision, right? These brands, they had a clear idea of what they wanted to be from the very beginning. They weren't trying to please everyone. They had a target audience and they went after it. Absolutely. It's about creating something unique and unforgettable for a specific group of people. So if you're building something yourself, whether it's a shop, a website, a service, the question to ask yourself is how do you create an experience that people will want to be a part of? How do you make them feel something that they'll remember and want to come back to?
You know, it's really amazing to think about how all of these places, these experiences that seem so effortless, they were actually carefully crafted by people who really understood how to tap into what people want, how to create a feeling, a movement even.
Yeah. And for anyone in the creative world, I think there's so much to learn from studying these hospitality icons. They understand their audience, they build strong brands, and they consistently deliver experiences that people crave. It's a masterclass in how to make it in a really competitive space.
So as you're working on your own projects, think about these lessons. How can you create a killer atmosphere? How can you build a real community around what you do? And how can you stay flexible and adapt as things change?
Because at the end of the day, it's not just about what you create, it's about how it makes people feel. That's the real magic behind these iconic New York brands. And that's what will make your work stand out too.